Working this thing?
Any public comment? Any public comment? Last chance. No public comment this morning. Move on to item 4A. We need approval of our minutes from last month.
So moved. Support.
We have a motion by Snell, support by Pileski. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Move on to appointments. We have no appointments this morning. It looked like we did, but we do not. Move on to the Enterprise Group semi-annual report. Jim?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We provided you some bullet points on our joint report with the Enterprise Group and all the other entities that we are responsible for contracting with and reporting to you on. Just a couple quick overview things. Our recent unemployment rate, June, was 5%. That is similar to Ingham on our north, it's 4.9. The lowest in the county is Livingston at 3.2. We're right in the top third. I think we're about 32nd of the 83 counties. Our continuing issue is finding people that will work. The number of job openings, we get them every week. The number of job openings weekly range between 1,400 and 1,450 in Jackson County. And as you heard earlier this morning, even the sheriff has problems filling deputy positions. We're having that issue, and I'll note on that real quickly. We're ramping up a small issue with the schools to work on talent issues. We're going to get back to our PACT, our work ethic program with the county schools. Now that they're going to be hopefully all in person again, it'll be easier to have those classes and talk about the work ethic issues and incorporate it into the curriculum, which all the schools have agreed to do. Pardon me. We're working on planning our manufacturing day. We're working with some partners in the community, Shop Rats and JAMA, to try to make it a little more robust effort this fall. We do retention visits every month. We've done 31 so far this year, and the number one issue that comes back to us is talent. And it doesn't matter whether it's entry-level positions or highly skilled positions that are paying $40 an hour. We just don't have enough people applying for the jobs that are out there. And we're not unusual. I think I've said this almost every report we've come to before you on, is every county's having this kind of challenge. And we even have a bigger one, given that we have so many metro areas so close to us. So trying to ramp up that high school age understanding of what jobs and the world of work is important. And we've had to kind of put that on hold the last 2 years because of COVID. But hopefully we're over that hump with the school districts now. I'm going to share the little bit of this with Alex, since she staffs the BDAs and the DDAs. But in 2022 so far, the EG's been involved in projects that have created a little over $11 million investment and 63 plus jobs. So I'm going to have Alex cover the BDA and DDAs real quick, and then I'll jump back up here on the industrial part.
Morning. How's everybody?
Good morning.
Good morning. Just a couple of expansions I wanted to mention, too, that are happening before we get off this slide with our investments and jobs created and retained. Technique over in Blackman Township is doing a $70,000 expansion or new building across the road from their current headquarters. And then Michigan Extruded Aluminum in Leone Township is also doing a 60,000 square foot expansion on the back of their building there off Watts Road. The next slide here is the Blackman Downtown Development Authority. Just a couple things. Work continues on the I-94 West Avenue Bridge, which includes the non-motorized pathway. The work on the sidewalk on Boardman to Airport Road, that will be complete once the I-94 work is done. That's not going to be done before that. And then just a couple new business developments within the BDDA is Burger King and Dairy Queen. You probably saw the Jackson Coffee Company was, the old building was demolished, and that will be a sit-in Dairy Queen. Next slide you have is the Blackman Local Development Finance Authority. Tim, I don't know if you want to do any of these updates, but we did have a ceremonial groundbreaking on this.
Sure, and I think all of you have been more than inundated with information on the park. We appreciate your support from earlier this morning. The one thing I would add is, in anticipation of the development of this park, we send that property out multiple times a month. So right now there's probably, I think, about 15 or 16 projects that we have, they're blind projects. We just get project names from the state of Michigan. But some as small as 10 to 15 acres, but some as big as the whole site. And most of them are related to the new developments in electric vehicles because of the different types of components that need to be made, and those facilities don't exist. So right now, I think we have 15 projects that are in the state mix, if you will, where we've introduced that site on the Jackson Technology Park North. And we've really stepped up the marketing efforts in anticipation of getting that road and the water and sewer done, so we'll all be shovel-ready, hopefully, about a year from now. So I just switched you from that.
Okay, sure. So hopefully you've been seeing some of that on Facebook, because that's mainly we're in LinkedIn. Our next is the Jackson County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Just a couple project updates that we have been involved in. New ownership took over of the Art 634, or the Acme site. It's called Aquarian Exposition. They have been holding multiple events. I don't know if anybody has been to anything, but they've really been doing a great job over there. We helped them with some soil analysis over there. Everything looks good so far. We also helped get the Brownfield plan passed by City Council for the Big B Coffee development, which is on the side of Cooper and North. They're already starting the development there. And then lastly, we are helping with South Central Credit Union, who is purchasing the old Sphinx building off of South and 127, right there by Kelly Fuels. We did some work over there as well, so that will be a new credit union. I wanted to let the County Commission know that we're going to be having a community outreach open house on Tuesday, October 11th, starting at 4:30 at the American One Event Center. That is going to be for community members to come, look at the past projects that we've been working on, talk to Eagle, the EPA, talk about the Missioner's plating site. So we'd love to have you there. It's going to be an open house. Lastly, I just want to talk about our EPA grant. We do have an EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant where we're able to help with environmental assessments at sites, properties. We have spent just over $118,000 of that, and we have roughly $181,000 left. That grant expires on September 30th of 2023, so just roughly a year from now. We've used about half of the funding. Last two entities that we staff. Economic Development Corporation, we staff that. Board does revolving loan funds, which are working capital loans. And we have done two so far. We did one in 2021 for about $41,250, I guess, for a down payment on their physical location there. That added 22 new jobs, and that's for Jackson Healing Clinic. And then we just did another one for them. They actually have grown so much they needed a second location, and so we just helped them with their down payment for that, and that's going to add 5 new jobs. So that was a really exciting project to be a part of. And lastly, the Parma Local Development Finance Authority. That is the land that the Village of Parma and Sandstone Township owns west of Mackey. We have been diligently trying to sell that property. It's about 24 acres, and we are working currently with a consultant and Consumers Energy on a potential project right there. And then lastly, Mackey Boulevard, for those of you that drive over there, that road resurfacing will be done by next month, hopefully. So that's it. Any questions for me and for Tim?
We have some. Darius.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was trying to take note on that. When was the open house?
It's October 11th. It'll be Tuesday from 4:30 to 6:30 at the American One Event Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that's all.
Commissioner Pulaski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the difficulty in hiring, you know, so far, we've all kind of accepted the fact that, gee whiz, there's nobody out there that's ready to take jobs that exist. Are you aware of any studies that anyone's doing as to why that's the case? I mean, to understand whatever sociological or economic issues are causing jobs to go unfilled would be good to know. And I don't necessarily charge you guys with knowing that, but maybe is anyone at the state doing that? Or to understand, if we said something like, well, our population's getting older, we just don't have as many people, or there's a common view, I think, among the population that unemployment benefits are so great that people won't go out and get jobs. Now, I'm not sure that's the case, but it would be nice to understand whether that had any effect upon
I don't know that anybody's doing it at the local level, Commissioner, but at a macro level, it's all those things coming together at once. In addition to the labor shortage has caused, and you probably have read the term, the Great Resignation, where people are very willing to say, I don't like my job anymore, I can go out and put myself out in the marketplace and increase my salary or my hourly rate. And so even the turnover element is something that we've never experienced before.
Right.
There aren't enough, you just want to look at people as raw material, there just aren't enough people in them. And the labor participation rate has gone down, which means there's people, the unemployment rate doesn't even really reflect the unemployment rate, because there's people that are just sitting out of the market, if you will, that they're not even counted anymore. They don't collect unemployment anymore. So there's probably a dozen different variables that are all impacting each other that I'm not aware that there's a study that's saying why is this the case.
I'd
But
be
I
very
think COVID
curious.
turned everything on its head.
I mean, that would be, I'm sure, one of the macro, causes of where we find ourselves, and from a macro perspective, all these things work. But from a micro perspective, people eat every day, and they have to have money to eat every day. And the question is, how do they do it?
How are they surviving?
So that,
That falls to you and me.
I wanna know how it is that folks are filling their belly every day,
And I
if they're
can't,
not a part of the job force and they're not having any money coming in.
and I can't answer that question. The one other variable I think is important to note, not necessarily in the technical skills area, but in the office worker area, if you will. And I will only say this is anecdotal because I don't have the numbers, but I know that most of the people that have office-related jobs, Commonwealth for Associates, for instance, Consumers Energy, most of their jobs that they know can be done remotely, they post remotely now, and they hire people that never even get to Jackson, Michigan. They work from Colorado, they work from, and that's one way to try to reduce the pressures that are on the job market right now. The other thing that's happened is employers have become much more aggressive at seeking out people that have the skills that they need, not going to an employment agency per se, but where I know a couple examples where the University of Michigan needed somebody with technical skills. They're going on LinkedIn and finding people that have the skills that aren't looking for a job and reaching out to them saying, I have this position that would be perfect for you.
Sure.
And so the whole employment pod, if you will, is so different than it was 2.5 years ago. And I don't think anybody has a scientific answer.
Right, and that disruption is continuing for us, and I'm just, to understand the disruption is to attempt to address it, and I don't know how to, we're trying to figure out how to address it, yeah.
Well, I will say, I was a panelist for breaking the myths about the employment issue, like you had talked about. And one of the things that I found in my research was that between, I think it was 2000 and 2010, the baby boomer generation was the only generation with a labor participation rate greater than any other generation. And so what happened was when COVID hit and they all took early retirement, or a great chunk of them did, we weren't able to catch back up on that labor participation rate in any other category. And so that really affected us, on top of the, like Tim was saying, the Great Resignation and entrepreneurship being such a huge pull for some people. So I think that, and with women and having to stay home with the kids, really created a perfect storm.
We're mentioning all kinds of postulations, how it's happened, but no, you're not aware of anyone doing any kind of a comprehensive study as to say, here's why, and here's something we measured.
Not at our level.
Okay, all right.
Unfortunately.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
I'd like a motion and support to recognize enterprise groups. Report.
Move to accept, Mr. Chair. Support.
And support, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Next up, we have finance. Welcome, Cecilia.
morning. So I am here to report on June's financial statement. Our benchmark is 50%, and the number that we kind of look at when we're looking at year-to-date expenditures. And revenue's a little bit different because, revenues come in at a different time frame. But if we go ahead and turn to page 2, I do note the different categories where we are over 50% and as to why. Are there any questions on this page at all? So if we go ahead and turn to page 3, it kind of gives you our summary where our general fund did come in at 49.2%. Again, our benchmark is 50, so there's a positive 0.8% there. And the year-to-date average was 49.6, and again, we're still at a positive 0.4% as of June 22. Any questions?
Questions? Commissioner Pulaski?
This is, maybe not with respect to this month's report, but if we were to spend, for example, $1.1 million in a road project in Blackman Township, where would that get accounted for in this?
Okay. So basically, I believe that budget amendment will post in July. So as of right now, it would come out of our SRI money, our partial settlements that we have, and so right now, in July, when I did a budget amendment, I had it as a transfer out of going into capital. And if the board approves the Leone, I would just change that into a transfer out. So it'd show up in our transfer out.
So we'd be way over budget on our transfer outs if we did that.
Well, no, right now it's budgeted as a transfer out as debt service, or capital, as a capital plan. So it would go into our capital fund. So it will be budgeted in there in July. You'll see in the budget amendment. It's just going to move categories. So again, it'll be in our transfers out. Does that make sense?
We adjust the budget to fit
What your needs,
what we spend.
what you're wanting.
And
Right.
so.
I would just want to be transferring out to capital instead of be transferring out to a road project.
And I realize that to not amend our budget for some spending we do puts us in trouble with the state.
It's the board approved, it's
The board would have to approve the budget
Yes.
amendment as, in addition to the spending.
Yes. I mean, I just don't do it. It would be if this board approves the Leone Township project, I would come, Blackman, thank you.
They all run together after a while,
It-
don't they,
It really
Cecilia?
does. I just got told, never mind. I got told something else and I have Leone in my mind. But my point is that if this board approves that to where we want to do that project, I would come before you, I would ask for a budget amendment, moving money from our capital fund to the road fund for that $1.2 million.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Any further questions? Commissioner Bear?
How much money currently is in our capital improvement fund?
I would have to look that up, Tony, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Further questions? Thank you, Cecilia.
All right, okay, yes,
Excellent report.
thank you.
Moving on, pardon me? Oh, yeah. I'd like a motion of support to recognize Cecilia's report.
So to accept.
Moved by Pulaski, seconded by Snell. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Move on to item E, facilities. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm here to request that we move forward to the full board, the approval of the replacement of the rooftop heating and cooling unit at the youth center under ARPA project INF-22, youth center cooling system replacement, using the low bid from Force Mechanical of Jackson, Michigan at $20,500.
I have a question. This covers one unit?
This is one rooftop unit that covers a lot of square footage.
Yes, but isn't there 7 altogether?
Excuse me?
How many units do we have rooftop? Just one?
On the youth, no, there's multiple up on the youth center. We'll be addressing a couple more of them.
Oh, okay, that's what I was wondering, if we are to look forward to
Yeah, we have
more.
overall master plan coming to head, with all HVAC-related units in the county, but this one is just dead. So we have to go forward.
Thank you, Derek, that's what I was wondering. So we can expect you back on the same topic.
Multiple times.
Okay, other questions? not, need a motion and support to spend the ARPA money on,
I'll move that.
Support.
okay, motion by Snell, support by Walls. All in favor indicate by
Mr. Chair,
saying
can
aye.
I make a comment here?
Yes, sir, hold on.
I'll vote in favor of this because it's nickels and dimes. But, again, I will request that we get our report on our building usage, and I question whether ARPA money should be spent for this particular item. I'm sure they can be spent for this purpose, but, we might have done this with, more general, monies, in my view. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, proceed to a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Item F, Parks and JDOT sediment testing.
All right, so, I think I talked about it earlier a little bit, but this is the item for this, sediment testing for the lagoons, to have it done so that we can determine the type of disposal that we can do if we were to move forward with this project. We put it out to bid, and we only got one consultant that responded, and it was SME. SME is the current bid holder that does the material testing for JCDOT. We've worked with them for a number of years. They do a great job. Just quickly, the RFP, we worked on that with Eagle, and their sediment, the sampling, the number of samples was all determined based on the requirements for Eagle. The other common question was there, where those samples are, that's based on the dredging plans that were drawn up in 2010 by Jack Ripstra. And as we move forward with the process for the project, we'll consult with Jack to update these plans as requested by Eagle for the project.
Okay. Questions, discussion?
I'll move it, Mr. Chair, and then I have a question.
Okay.
I'll support that.
We have a motion by Plesky, second by Snell. Go ahead, Mr. Plesky for chair.
Madam Director, will JCDOT be paying for this?
No, sorry, this is coming out of the $1 million. There was $100,000 set aside of that $1 million that Parks received for the dredging project, and it's coming out of that.
So it's coming out of the Parks budget.
Yes, that money is in the Parks budget.
Just wanted to make that clear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any further questions on this topic? Commissioner Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Depending on what's down there and in the soil, is that something that, once it's dredged and pulled out of there, that could be sold?
Sold? I mean, I don't think so. We talked about possibly being able to use it to, like, say, fill in where there's a road that we don't want there anymore if we were to remove portions of a road and then seed over it, but I don't know that we could sell it.
Find gold in it.
I guess
We would.
Commissioner
love
Plesky?
that.
No, I'm present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the chance to speak twice to it. Once we know what's down there, is there a possibility we may find we didn't want to know what was down there?
No, I mean, no. It just means it's expensive to remove it and dispose of it properly. So yes, in terms of it will increase our cost of our project, but we have to know what's down there to be able to dredge.
So if we were to know what was down there and it was not to our liking, and not most particularly to Eagle's liking, could we be compelled to deal with it because we know what's there?
Okay. Oh, that looks like Shotwell.
Sounds like there's an answer across the table.
It would drop into the category of Michener plating. It would go from a problem we're aware of to a problem for Eagle, and then the EPA, and it would become a Superfund site, and it would rotate through the process that way. It's not something, what would happen if we found something so bad that it would rotate through the process to out of our control, is what would occur. Very similar to the 4 truckloads of debris we had to take from the airport to Cincinnati. It'll just immediately jumps into that other category, and hopefully you've been paying attention enough, paying attention as in our organization, not commissioners, but our organization enough that we're able to line it up for grants and funding and that type of stuff, and not just have to pay for it out of our pocket.
So we wouldn't be compelled to do something, on our own immediately, should we find very, very nasty stuff
I'm not
there.
gonna say no, but I'm going to say normally you get an opportunity, once you become aware of something, to begin the process. Very similar to the flash drive, if you wanna read what's involved in the green monster that used to set on Ganson and the Grand River, the old Acme building. You know, the ambient air there, you can't park on, that's why it's fenced. Not fenced because we really want to look at a cement foundation. It's done because literally you can't breathe that air. So it's allowed to vent and get out and go away, then it's okay. But you can't stand on it. So we couldn't make it a parking lot, we couldn't make it residential apartments like we talked to doing. We couldn't do any of that with it. It has to be for a number of half-life years involved in what's down there. So that's the solution that occurs.
And I don't suggest that what's at the Cascades is anything along the lines of
No.
industrial waste like that,
No.
but,
We've also dug that ground repeatedly up until 1978.
mhm.
So, yeah, so it's been turned over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Any further discussion? We got a motion and support already? Yes. Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Angie. Under G, this would be Parks, MDNR Trust Fund Project.
Good morning. So this is the
Kyle.
first of two resolutions to accept project agreements from the DNR. So you all authorized a grant application back in April of 2021, basically for development of pickleball courts at Sparks Foundation County Park. So these grants are a great funding source, but they're a long process. So we are, about 16 months later, this is basically to accept the funding. So the grant was recommended this past December, and then the funds were approved last month. We just received this project agreement, and basically this is to accept the grant.
Questions? We receive this grant, we get the monies, when do we expect the project to start?
So the project, it's too late this year for construction, but we've been working on the design plans since the spring, basically. Once this is approved, then the DNR has 30 days to approve the plans, basically. So we'd be going out to bid probably in January and hope to have it built by before this time next year, hopefully June or July next year.
Thank you. Commissioner Snell.
Yeah, just a general note, I'm looking at the map here, and it has that 3 point so many acres on Kibbe and West as part of the Cascades Park. My understanding is that was not a parcel of those 4 parcels there. Were not a part of the park. Owned by the county, but not part of the park. On the eastern part there.
In the renderings, you mean?
Yeah, in the rendering.
Well, I mean, it's part of the park boundary, but not part of this project. This would go where the existing tennis courts are up from the...
I was under the understanding that wasn't part of the park at all.
We,
So, Ray, that isn't technically, it's part of JDOT. But when the county assumed control of JDOT, we became in charge of all of that property.
Right.
If you look at the tags on all of this property, it's not correct, and for some reason, we can't get GIS to re-tag everything correctly.
I think they did.
So,
I was just
you know,
in there looking at it.
yeah, that's the ongoing issue. It's part of the park only because it's contiguous, but it's not part of the park as in something we need to maintain as part of the park.
Okay.
And since Captain Sparks left, it's been for sale, it just never had a sign on it. So we tried to become a little more aggressive in our marketing of the property, and this board chose not to do that.
At this time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Bear has a comment.
pardon me?
Commissioner Bear.
Commissioner Bear.
What parcel of land were you referring to for sale?
Corner of West Avenue and Kibbe, it's a triangle when you look at that map. In the,
Okay.
right there.
That motion to turn this over to our administrator for sale, and for him to turn it over to our realtor to sell it, that motion still exists. It's never been rescinded. That motion's still on the books, and tomorrow, if our administrator decides to turn this over to a realtor, he can sell it.
I believe it was still board approved.
Correct.
Yes.
The board approved it, and
No, no, no,
it's
no.
still,
No.
Authorizing it to put it up for sale.
Out of order, Mr. Chair.
I couldn't hear you. Doesn't speak up enough.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, I think the discussion has gone beyond the motion.
Correct. Then after,
So many others.
okay, we'll go back to the topic here at hand, the trust fund project. Need a motion and support?
I'll move it.
I'll support it.
Supported by Plesky, seconded by Snell. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimous. We'll go to item H, trust fund project resolution.
Okay, kind of same story with this. This is the acquisition grant that we applied for in April of 2021. It was recommended in December 2021. The funding was approved last month. So this is to acquire about a quarter acre next to the swimming area at Little Wolf Lake County Park, which would expand the lakeside of the park there by about 50 feet, which some of the renderings show that this is just to acquire it, but we would use it potentially in the future to expand to a kayak launch or something, basically more land on the park side. So the next step in this basically would be to have an updated appraisal done and then to make an offer to the current owner. We'd have 2 years to close on the property. He's not in a huge rush. He likes that time frame, so he'd actually like to get another summer beyond this summer out of the land. So accept the grant, basically.
How did we get the grant money if we don't know what the purchase price is?
So we did do an appraisal just to have an idea on how much to apply for, and then basically it requires an updated, more thorough appraisal the second time around.
Okay, and then does this property, would it be eligible to be a boat launch rather than kayak, or launch of boat?
But yeah, I think it would be potentially.
Okay. Okay. Questions? Discussion, what's your pleasure, board? Move this to the full board? If we do so, I need a motion and support.
I'll move that.
I'll support, and then I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Snell, supported by Plesky. Go ahead, Chairman, or Chair Plesky.
Thank you, sir. Looks like there's a house there, building there. That would be demolished, I assume, and if we're buying a property on Little Wolf Lake at $250,000, it seems like a bargain.
It would either need to be demolished, or we'd have to find a use, it would need to be demolished.
It's not much of a house. Oh, isn't it much of a house? I mean, oh, is it? Okay, well, but still, $250,000 of lake place sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's more of just a summer cottage.
okay, all right.
Heck, we can Airbnb it.
Raise eyes, go.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor of moving forward to the full boards, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Okay, we'll go on to the next topic. It's parks topic, and this is the Parks, Art, and Public Place policy.
Yeah, so this is, I'm introducing a new policy. Basically, we've had some sculptures in place on a temporary basis since last fall on the Flying Waters Trail. And I know there's some interest from the donor in two of those, there's 8 of them out there, and 2 of those remain as more permanent bases. So the idea here was to have some type of a standard in place for when things like this pop up, and give some guidance, accepting sculptures or any kind of art. So this, I think this policy covers it. Basically, we looked at long-term maintenance costs, the cost to acquire the sculptures, just thinking about if we are gonna own the sculptures, if they're gonna continue to be there, thinking about the long-term plan for those. So I think this covers costs as well as appropriateness, and this would go to the full board as well.
Okay, who determines the appropriateness? Is that the Parks Board?
Ultimately, it'd be this board with a recommendation from the Parks Board.
Anything crazy out there? Any further questions?
I'll throw a question out, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
With respect to long-term maintenance, I mean, if it's let's say it's a metal sculpture or something like that, it could rust, it could need painting, it could need something. That would be Parks' responsibility to do that in an artistically appropriate way?
It would, yeah, and the idea would be to, when the donation is made, to have some funds that are set aside for things like that. We've talked about, with the current donor, he's even, Dr. Lavert, he said that he would, before he proposes a certain sculpture, he would think about the long-term maintenance costs. 2 of them that he's gonna propose here coming up wouldn't need much maintenance at all going into the future.
I'll move the adoption of the staff recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Plesky, do we have a second?
Iron building. Took a snapshot, built it.
You want to second that?
No.
Commissioner Barron's back, is he on your committee?
No.
No.
I'll second that motion. Okay. A motion and a second by Plesky, seconded by Duckham. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, we proceed to, thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
I have a quick, general question about parks.
Okay.
So earlier this year, we did something, we passed a resolution to do something with control of the geese on the Cascades. How's that turning out?
Well, they're still geese. I mean, it's a never-ending battle, so, I mean, it's...
Raccoons with wings.
That's kind of the second phase of different measures of control we've tried, and, I mean, I think they're always gonna be a problem, so it's...
We haven't seen any reduction?
I think we've seen a reduction, but there's still quite a bit.
Yeah, and I wanted to throw away my granddaughter's shoes after she played out there this weekend. So
they're just everywhere. I mean, that's, we removed 92 of them last year and relocated them, but you could go, a half a mile away at another golf course, and there's 100 more from there that just still in the hole, basically.
Well, thanks a lot, appreciate it.
Welcome for that.
Yeah. Okay, I move to item 5, claims. Motion and support, pay the claims.
I'll move that.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, make sure you get them signed. No other minutes. Next month, reporting schedule, finance, treasurer, BPW annual, conservation district semi-annual. Move to public comment. Any public comment? Public comment. Public comment is closed. Move to committee member comments. Any committee member comment? Commissioner,
If I may, through the chair, I want to apologize. The Jackson County tax parcel map is correct. All 20-some properties over there in the Cascades. I apologize. Snide comment before during our candid discussion of the Cascades. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, any other comment? Public or commissioner comments? Meeting over. Thank you.
Thanks, Duck Man.
You're welcome there, freaking
Saucy.
saucy.
Mike, I see you ceded your chairmanship.